Hello and welcome to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio. Researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson and produced in the studios of WRMI Shortwave in Okeechobee, Florida. I'm Jeff White. Today on Wavescan, tribute to shortwave WYFR WRMI, Part 12, A Multitude of QSL Cards. Our Ancient DX report for 1907, and a reminder about our annual DX contest, the rare QSL card. We continue in our series of topics on the fascinating backgrounds of the large American shortwave station WYFR WRMI. And on this occasion, KVOH's Ray Robinson presents the interesting information regarding the enormous amount of QSL cards issued from the station at its various locations in the state of Massachusetts.
On May 10, 1924, the noted amateur radio entrepreneur Irving Vermillion at Mattapoisett, some 50 miles south of Boston, broadcast a music program from his medium wave station WBBG under the experimental call sign 1XAL. He received many reception reports from listeners in surrounding states, written onto the popular applause cards of the day. In his first radio history book, On the Shortwaves, 1923 to 1945, Jerome Berg in suburban Boston refers to the fact that shortwave station 2XAL, with studios in New York and transmitter at Coatesville in New Jersey, received a reception report from a listener in Australia in 1928 at a time when the station was running at less than 500 watts. Station W2XAL from New Jersey was transferred to Boston, and it took over the experimental call sign from WBBG at Mattapoisett and began broadcasting in Boston under the now abandoned call W1XAL in mid-1931. The earliest known QSL cards from Walter Lemon's experimental shortwave station, W1XAL, in Boston, were issued a few months later, in January 1932. This first QSL card acknowledged reception reports addressed to the shortwave station, as well as to the experimental TV and Apex high-fidelity stations operated by the television pioneer Hollis Baird. Since that time, this Boston shortwave station, under its different owners and locations, has issued untallied thousands of QSL cards in a multitude of different card designs and styles during its more than 40 years of on-air activity. Recent research has uncovered at least 50 different QSL card designs and styles, and it's likely that many more, perhaps even 4 times that number, were issued. One particular card, showing the call sign WRUL diagonally in large red letters, was issued in 1954, and it was numbered 14,424, though it's not known when this numbering sequence began. The design on many of the earlier QSL cards featured a stylized microphone, and this motif was emblazoned on several different QSL cards, both in size and in position. These cards usually listed all the call signs and frequencies in use at the time. One of the very rare QSL cards issued for the reception of experimental station W1XAR verified test transmissions on 11730 kHz on March 19, 1939. According to an analysis of the historical events associated with this specific transmitter, this particular QSL card is the only known verification of transmitter W1XAR at its temporary location at suburban Norwood in Boston. A picture of this card can be seen in the Canadian DX magazine, DX Ontario, dated July 2006 on page 13. There are no known QSL cards verifying the usage of the 2 regularized call signs WSLA and WSLR, which were in temporary use for just 13 days at Hatherley Beach, Scituate, from August the 25th to September the 6th, 1939. Both transmitters at 20 kilowatts each had been removed from the Boston location and reinstalled at the recently acquired facility at Hatherley Beach. The 2 temporary call signs were replaced by the now better-known calls WRUL and WRUW. A QSL card printed in Spanish and mailed from Nicaragua shows the 2 newly installed transmitters in the renovated transmitter building at Hatherley Beach, Scituate, with a diagrammatic representation showing the scheduling for the 2 transmitters on 5 different shortwave channels. There are no known QSL cards verifying the reception of the call sign WRUR, which was in the use on the air from 1941 to 1947 approximately. The call WRUR was apparently a subsidiary call for the 20 kilowatt WRUW on 9700 kilohertz. On July 1st, 1953, all 5 transmitters at Scituate, WRUA, WRUL, WRUS, WRUW, and WRUX, were redesignated as WRUL 1 through 5, and the owners of the station, WWBF, or the Worldwide Broadcasting Foundation, introduced a new QSL card. This new card shows the single call letters diagonally in large red print, WRUL. At least 4 different versions of this card are known, though they're all very similar. In 1959, a listener in Sweden received one of the new red-letter QSL cards, and instead of the small stylized microphone in the top right-hand corner, there's a small version of the globe, planet Earth. This is the only known copy of this particular card, though obviously many more would have been printed. There is also only one known copy of the QSL card verifying the 5 kilowatt WIOD transmitter in Miami, which was reactivated at Scituate under the WWBF call sign WRUS. This same transmitter was later redesignated as WRUX, and another QSL card was printed for the occasion, with the call sign again printed diagonally in large red print. During the era when the Scituate station was in service with the Voice of America, United Nations Radio, and the Armed Forces Radio Service, AFRS, these parent organizations issued their own QSL cards for their relays via the WRUL transmitters. Metro Media in New York purchased the shortwave station at Hatherley Beach in 1960, and they owned the station for just 3 years. Their QSL card showed the code letters QSL in large black print on a plain card. At least 2 versions of this card are known, one in off-white and the other in dark green. Then it was in mid-1962 that Bonneville International bought the station, and they owned it for a period of 11 years. Their QSL card showed the letter W surrounding planet Earth, and most designs were very similar, though printed on different coloured card. On June 1st, 1966, Bonneville changed the call sign from WRUL to WNYW, and they produced a commemorative QSL card to honour the occasion. This card shows their production studios at 485 Madison Avenue, New York. Then, early on Sunday morning, April 9th, 1967, a disastrous fire of suspicious origin completely destroyed the Hatherley Beach shortwave station. As Jerome Berg tells us in his first radio book, the WNYW programming was carried by the shortwave communication stations at Brentwood and Rocky Point for a period of some 4 months. There are no known QSL cards verifying this temporary fill-in relay service. In 1973, Bonneville sold shortwave station WNYW to Family Radio in Oakland, California, and they changed the call sign to WYFR and brought in a whole new series of QSL cards. We plan to present that story here in Wavescan on a coming occasion.
Ray Robinson reporting there on Wavescan. And as you know, Wavescan is broadcast each week on KVOH shortwave in Los Angeles. Ray Robinson at the station tells us we made some changes to our English schedule on 9975 kilohertz last weekend. Those changes impact the airing of Wavescan on Sunday evening, UT Monday. Previously, we have run Wavescan from 0200 to 0230 UTC. That's 10 to 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Effective immediately, Wavescan will now be heard half an hour earlier, from 0130 to 0200 UTC. That's 9:30 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, still on 9975 kilohertz from KVOH. Well, next on Wavescan today, we have another installment of the varied talks and presentations that were given at the 2014 NASB, or National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters meeting in Greenville, North Carolina.
Our next 2 presentations, starting off a veteran of the NASB, Charles Caudle, will be talking about Madagascar World Voice.
I've been asked to bring you some positive news about Madagascar World Voice. That's the station that we're about to complete near Majunga, Madagascar. Actually, the only thing that's left to do is to ship our transmitters to Madagascar and hook them up. Everything else is ready to go. Jeff, it seems like I've been making these reports for a long time, and for a long time you folks have shown a great interest in our progress or our lack of progress. And some of you have continued to dream with us through the highs and the lows and of this experience, and you have encouraged us through coups d'etats and bad weather and cyclones and money woes and difficult government officials. But we never gave up on that dream, and neither did some of you, and neither did our donors, thank goodness. And now there has been an election in Madagascar, and there is a new president. We're encouraged by his positive attitude and by the assuring statements he has made. His name is Razu Ruru Imam Piananina. Basically, we have learned that the United States has recognized the election, and while there were some irregularities in the election, the State Department believes the results fairly represent the will of the Malagasy people. Kevin reminded the embassy of our difficulties with the Minister of Communication. At this point, we believe things are moving in a positive direction. The new president has chosen his prime minister, and we learned just Tuesday that he has chosen the ministers of the different departments, including the Minister of Communications. Our hope is that the prime minister and the new minister of communications will be people who have a strong belief in freedom of the press. And if that happens, World Christian Broadcasting will be in a very positive position and moving toward beginning our broadcast from Madagascar within a few months. In order to keep our staff busy, after we got all those buildings completed, we wanted to keep our staff. So in order to keep them busy, we've completed other tasks that were needed in and around Majunga. We unashamedly have our logo displayed prominently on all of our equipment, the dozers, the backhoes, the tractors, the pickups. We want everybody to know who we are and who's doing that work. And as well as having our workers in uniforms, displaying our logo. Not that we're trying to receive the glory, we just want them to know who's doing the work. We maintain a fire break around the national forest that is nearby. Our bulldozers keep busy doing that. Kevin discovered a school not too far from our station that was literally falling apart. The roof and ceiling were falling in. Bats lived in the portion that was still standing. Bat iguana covered the walls and the floor of the school. So Kevin and his guys have literally rebuilt that school. Last Thursday, a week ago, I met with the Deputy Chief of Missions and the Counselor of Business and Economics in the Madagascar Embassy in Washington. Both men were interested in the business aspect of our station, how many people we employ, different things like that. They also wanted to know about the possibility of using our station as a means for saying good things about Madagascar in an effort to rebuild their tourist industry. As you might imagine, that tourist industry was completely destroyed. We of course assured those guys that part of our programming will include PR pieces about Madagascar, and of course they wanted to know how much we're going to charge them, and we said no, that's for free. We want to do that. We have had a very successful campaign through the years in Alaska and doing things, talking about Alaska. People around the world love to hear about Alaska. We do a program called Postcards from Alaska. and we'll do the same thing about Madagascar. And so they were very interested in that. So bottom line, Madagascar is looking pretty positive right now. Kevin and I have sort of established a timeline that looks something like this. Now that the new Minister of Communications has been appointed and our folks are already at his office door, his first day to actually see people is tomorrow, Friday. And so they're already at his door. And he does not take appointments. You have to get in line. We're there. We're there in an effort to see what his feelings are. Depending upon our success there, and our plan is to put the transmitters on the ocean during July or August, and they should arrive at least by the end of October. It would be possible, I say, to get them hooked up before Kevin returns to Alaska for Christmas. And that being the case, we could be on the air early in 2015. A lot of things have to go our way, but for one thing is for sure. God can make it happen. So thank you very much.
That was Charles Caudle of KNLS Alaska and World Christian Broadcasting. And on the following day at the conference, Charles had some even better news, which I had the pleasure of announcing there at the NASB meeting.
We start out this afternoon with some really good news. You heard yesterday about the situation with Madagascar World Voice. Well, this morning they got a very interesting phone call, and apparently the communications minister in Madagascar says he's going to sign the license, right? So the thing is in the works. After how many years? So congratulations to Charles and all his team for many years of hard work on that.
You've just heard an excerpt from the live proceedings at the 2014 NASB annual meeting in North Carolina, USA. We'll have more of these recordings in future editions of Wavescan. Well, during the year 1907, the broadcast of radio programming was noted in the United States and in islandic Europe, as well as from anchored ships and ships at sea. Even though these broadcasts were certainly still experimental in nature, yet the program content indicated the intent to entertain and to inform, thus the designation radio broadcasting. Soon after the beginning of the new year 1907, on February 6th, Lieutenant Quentin Crawford of the Royal Navy in England presented a radio broadcast over the air from the ship HMS Andromeda. At the time, the Andromeda was anchored at Chatham, an inlet off the Thames estuary on the east coast of England. This broadcast was organized by Lieutenant Quentin Crawford with the approval of the naval authorities, and in recounting the event, wireless operator Crawford stated that he adapted the Spark wireless transmitter, QFP, on the Andromeda so that it could broadcast music and speech. His historic inaugural broadcast was a patriotic concert program performed by Navy personnel. This broadcast, with the approval of the naval authorities, began with a rendition of the national anthem, God Save the King. This surprise broadcast was heard by wireless operators on board other Navy vessels anchored nearby. However, as a security measure, Lieutenant Crawford was not permitted to publicize the event, neither before nor afterwards, though the event attained historic significance as the first wireless broadcast in England and the first from a ship. It appears that another radio broadcast was subsequently presented from another British ship nearby. American experimenter Lee DeForest also made several radio program broadcasts from ships, both at sea and at anchorage. On July 18th, he transmitted race results from the steam yacht Thelma and the Lake Erie Regatta. These voice reports were received ashore on a nearby island by his assistant Frank Butler. Subsequently, Forrest and Butler constructed additional transmitters and made many experimental transmissions with voice and music content between buildings in Toledo, Ohio. As a result of the success of these radio ventures, Forrest was invited to install 2 transmitters on the Navy vessels Connecticut and Virginia, and this led to the installation of more than a score of transmitters on other Navy vessels. On December 16th, Forrest made a special entertainment broadcast from the ship Dolphin, as it was moored at the Brooklyn Navy Yard in New York. Swedish-born 34-year-old opera singer Eugenia Ferrar sang I Love You Truly and other songs during the live broadcast, which was reported in a New York newspaper. This broadcast was the send-off for the round-the-world tour of the Great White Fleet. Over along the West Coast, wireless operator Arthur Isbell made many wireless transmissions aboard the passenger ship President under the call sign V2. The transmitter was manufactured under the Massey system, and it operated on 750 kilohertz at 3 kilowatts. Several of these transmissions created new long-distance records. Subsequently, Arthur Isbell established a wireless station in San Francisco with antenna masts 200 feet tall. This station adopted the call sign IAA, a reversal of the operator's initials. Many newspapers covered the story of Lita Forrest's radio broadcasts from the Telharmonic Hall at 38th and Broadway in New York, both before and after the events. This program, the first in a short series, presented music from the harmonium, and listeners were invited to make requests for special selections of music. Test broadcasts between the Telharmonic Hall and the passenger liner Normandy began a week in advance of the main broadcasts. In Canada, the Canadian Meteorological Service began the broadcast of time signals on a regular basis, the first in the world. The time signal was generated at the Dominion Observatory at St. John, New Brunswick. It was on the air daily around 10 a.m., and it was broadcast by the Marconi Coastal Station HX at Camperdown near Halifax, Nova Scotia. Over in continental Europe, crystal radio receivers were developed by Tissot and Pellin in France, and Robert Goldschmidt in Belgium conducted wireless experiments between the Palace of Justice in Brussels and two cooperating locations, the Namur Citadel and the Liège Observatory. The Christchurch exhibition in New Zealand, at which wireless transmission and reception was demonstrated, ended on April 15th, and a huge Marconi wireless station was inaugurated at Clifton in Ireland for transatlantic service on October 17th. Right towards the end of the year 1907, the Great White Fleet began its triumphal world tour, and more than 20 American naval vessels were equipped with the new Forrest wireless equipment. That story will come on another occasion here in Wavescan.
You're listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. Send your comments and reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229 in the United States. Or you can email us at wavescan@awr.org. Our email once again, wavescan@awr.org.
Thank you, Ellen Graham. And you, dear listeners, should remember to participate in our big annual DX contest in September, which comes to you under the title Rare, Unusual, Unique QSLs, AWR Focus on Asia 2014 Annual DX Contest. In brief, you're invited to provide information about your rare, unusual, and unique QSLs, up to 5 in number. Describe these QSLs in one brief paragraph each. Provide reception reports for 3 AWR Asian broadcasts. Provide a photograph of an Adventist unit in your country, and send 3 radio cards along. As an example of a rare QSL card, Adrian Peterson says, early one Sunday morning back in the year 1961, my wife and I were relaxing in our home in Launceston on the island of Tasmania. I switched on the radio and listened to the programming from medium wave station 7LA on 1100 kilohertz, and we heard the announcer state that they were broadcasting temporarily from their 100-watt emergency transmitter, which was installed at their studio location. The subsequent QSL card verified this low-powered transmitter, perhaps the only verification ever issued for this unit. A quick update. You may remember back on June 8th, we told you here in Wavescan about the planned round-the-world flight of 31-year-old Amelia Earhart to replicate and to complete the feat that her namesake predecessor attempted back in 1937. Well, on July 11th, Amelia Rose Earhart landed at Oakland International Airport, making her the youngest woman to circumnavigate the globe in a single-engine airplane. Her mission even included a ceremonial flyover of remote Howland Island in the Pacific, where many believe the original Amelia Earhart disappeared. Well, thanks very much for listening to Wavescan, the International DX program from Adventist World Radio, researched and written in Indianapolis by Adrian Peterson. Next week, Focus on Asia, the story of radio broadcasting in Pakistan, on the air in Peshawar. Our Australian DX report will also be along with Bob Padula. Several QSL cards are available for this program. Send your AWR and KSDA reception reports for Wavescan to the AWR address in Indianapolis, and also to the station your radio is tuned to, WRMI, or WWCR, or KVOH, or to the AWR relay stations that carry Wavescan. Here's our address: Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. That's the address for contest entries as well. Our email for your comments and suggestions is wavescan@awr.org. That's wavescan@awr.org. I'm Jeff White at WRMI Studios in Okeechobee, Florida. Till next week, we leave you with some nice folk music from the Aegean Sea of Greece.